What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today I have a really special build I've been working on for the past couple of days for you guys, especially you werebear lovers out there who are just maybe a little bit tired of constantly running Pulverize every season. Now, this is a build I had made in Season 2, but then put it to rest when I went into Season 3, and then when I heard they were going to revise the suppressor enemies, I decided why not revive it and get it going. And honestly, guys, it took me a little while, but we have a really great version of our BOULDERCANE bear build here for you guys today. Now, as you guys seen from the gameplay footage at the beginning of the video, we cleared Uber Lilith and we cleared a tier 100 fairly easily, and we didn't even utilize an elixir for those runs. Now, for those of you who typically skip the video and go right to the Mobalytics link, please guys, scroll down to the bottom of the first build page that you come to in Mobalytics and look at the description box below. It has details for the bossing setup as well as the swap for Ring of Starless Skies and also the swaps for the Seneschal construct. Now, with that being said, I hope this one gets you guys to hit the sub button because honestly, who's bringing you builds like this season other than me? I got you the Human Lightning Storm Druid with the Uber version coming. I have an insane Stormclaw build that just blasts through tier 100s. And then now we have a BOULDERCANE bear, dedicated bear build for you werebear lovers so you no longer have to play Pulverize every single season. Now, as always, guys, I will be uploading a how-to video for this build probably tomorrow, but if not tomorrow, on Tuesday. And I will also be uploading the full Uber Lilith fight with this build so that way you guys can see just how bad werebear needs movement speed. But enough with all that stuff, let's go ahead and talk about the build. So for our sign skills, we're running Wind Shear, Boulder, Hurricane. We're using Petrify for our ultimate to get rid of those pesky suppressor enemies. However, it doesn't always work, unfortunately. Then we're using Earthen Bulwark as well as our Debilitating Roar for our survivability. Now, something to note here, guys, and I will add this in the how-to video, do not stack these two abilities unless you absolutely have to. What you want to do is you want to stagger them when you're approaching a really tough elite pack. Maybe you prop your Debilitating Roar so that way you get that big damage reduction while you cast your boulders. And then if you find yourself in a pinch, then you go ahead and pop your Earthen Bulwark after your Debilitating Roars on cooldown so that way you can get out of those situations and not meet an untimely demise. Now on to our Spirit Boons. We're running Weariness on the Deer. We are Spirit Bonnet into the Eagle, and we're picking up that Iron Feather for more maximum life, as well as the Avian Wrath boon to further increase our critical strike damage. Then on the Wolf, we're running Calamity to increase the duration of our ultimate. However, even though I think this boon needs a buff, you could also run Energize if you need more resource. Then on the Snake, we're running the Calm Before the Storm boon because we want to reset our Petrify as fast as possible. Now for our equipment pieces, guys, and like I said, this is a werebear build, so we are using Vasili's Prayer in combination with the Insatiable Fury chest piece. Then on the gloves, we're running the Aspect of Retaliation so we get that multiplier while we're fortified. On the pants, we're running the Juggernaut's aspect because it's insanely overpowered. It gives us a ton of base armor that's further increased by our percentage to armor. And honestly, we end up with way too much armor because of the Insatiable Fury chest piece. Then onto the boots, we're running the Symbiotic aspect because this is a Nature's Fury build. And we definitely want to use this because we're trying to reset our Hurricane as much as possible. So we have it up 100% of the time so we can keep casting boulders. Then onto the staff, running the aspect of Metamorphic Stone, and this one gives us a big buff to our boulder damage and turns it into a core skill. Now for our amulet, obviously we're running the Dolmen Stone amulet, and then onto our first ring, we're running the aspect of Umbral, and this is the one you can swap out to the Ring of Starless Skies if you have that Uber Unique or when you get that Uber Unique. And last but not least, we're using the aspect of Natural Balance on our second ring, and we're mainly using this one for the big pull of critical strike damage we get towards our Earth skills once we cast a Storm skill. Now onto the gear affixes. So for the gloves, we're running critical strike damage with Earth skills, critical strike chance, attack speed, and willpower. On the pants, we are running ranks of Boulder, damage reduction while fortified, damage reduction, and damage reduction from close enemies. And really, you can run whatever combination of damage reduction affixes you prefer. Those are the ones that I like. For the boots, we're using movement speed, all stats, spirit cost reduction, and damage reduction while injured. And that is a flex affix. I personally like this one just in case I find myself in a really compromising position. This really helps buff up my defenses and possibly saves me long enough for me to get off a Bulwark or a Debilitating Roar. Then on the weapon, we're using all stats, critical strike damage, willpower, and damage to controlled enemies. You can also run core skill damage, or if you prefer, you can run critical strike damage with earth skills. Then for our rings, they're pretty much the same. We're running critical strike chance, critical strike damage to crowd control enemies to buff up our earth and devastation legendary node, and then critical strike damage with earth skills. Now into our gems, we're running sapphires on the weapon, rubies on the armor, and we're running diamonds on the jewelry. For our seneschal construct, we're running tempest with resource support, efficiency support, and swift, which swift will be replaced with evernight if you get it. Then for our second ability, we're running Flash of Adrenaline with duration support and tactical support, along with safeguard support. And obviously, when you get Genesis, you'll swap out safeguard support for that big boost to your multiplicative damage. Now, like I said, down here at the bottom is a bit of information for when you're bossing, as well as all the swaps I mentioned previously. So when you're bossing, you want to swap out Roar into Ravens and then Enhanced Ravens. Then you swap Savage Hurricane into Natural Hurricane, so you get a little bit of vulnerability there. And then swap Circle of Life passive in your skill tree to Natural Disaster for that big multiplicative damage bonus towards vulnerable enemies. Then you're going to want to swap your pants into Tebow's Will, not just for the multiplicative damage bonus, but also every time you cast Barrier, you'll get a big chunk of resources back. And that's really useful for keeping up your boulders. And then for the ring, if you do not have a Ring of Starless Skies, swap your Umbral Ring into a ring with the Conceited aspect. And then for Uber Uniques, again, swap Umbral Ring for Ring of Starless Skies, and that will be your best in slot for this build. And then obviously the information about the Seneschal construct that we just went over. Now onto our skill tree, we are running Wind Shear into Wild Wind Shear just to generate more spirit when we need to use it. We're going 1 point Heart of the Wild just to get 3 points into Wild Impulses for that big multiplicative bonus towards our core skills. Then we're grabbing 1 point Predatory Instinct into 3 points Iron Fur just to boost up our damage reduction while we're in Werebear. Then for our defensive skills, we're going 5 points into Earthen Bulwark and then 1 point for Enhanced Bulwark so we get that Unstoppable. And then 1 point Ancestral Fortitude, and that's really only to grab 3 points in Vigilance just again for that big damage reduction after casting a defensive skill. Then we're grabbing up 1 point Debilitating Roar, and then we're moving into Preserving Debilitating Roar. And honestly, guys, when you cast your Debilitating Roar, you really cannot die. I mean, I've never died when I cast this skill. Now into our Wrath tree, we're running Hurricane into Savage Hurricane for more damage reduction. We're grabbing 5 points Boulder, moving into Natural Boulder so we get that big critical strike chance while we're fortified. Then we're grabbing 3 points Crushing Earth, 3 points Stone Guard, and I always like to get 2 points Safeguard just to build up our Fortify that much faster. Then for our ultimates, we're using Petrify, like I said, and then we're just grabbing 1 point into Prime Petrify to increase the duration. If you find yourself needing more resources, you can always opt for a 3rd point for Supreme Petrify, so that way you get a big chunk of spirit back when you kill an enemy under the effect of Petrify. Then for our first passive tree here, we're grabbing 3 points Defiance. We're moving into 3 points of Circle of Life, and you really feel this because you're going to be casting boulders like crazy. And then we're grabbing 3 points Resonance, so every time we cast our Hurricane and then a boulder again, we get a big chunk of multiplicative damage just by doing that. And then for our second passive tree, we're grabbing 1 point Quick Shift, and then we're grabbing 3 points Heightened Senses, again, just to buff up our damage reduction a little bit more. Now moving on to our Paragon board, we're running Outmatched on the starter board, and we are going to pick up both rare nodes, so that way we get that big buff from the additional bonus to Outmatch. Then onto our second board is the Earth and Devastation board, and we're slotting in Werebear here because we're going to get a big bunch of additive damage here because we're always in Werebear, and we like to have that extra damage reduction. Then obviously we're going to be picking up the legendary node Earth and Devastation, and this one is really good because it further increases our critical strike damage multipliers here, and all we have to do is stack up some damage to controlled enemies, and we always have that because we're using a 2-hand staff, and we're also picking up some of the affixes on our jewelry, as well as some of the nodes here in our Paragon board. Now moving on to our third board, we are grabbing Survival Instinct as well as the Undaunted Glyph for a little bit more damage and damage reduction while fortified. And then we're also going to pick up the Legendary Node because it gives us a nice amount of multiplicative damage based off the amount of health we have versus the amount of health our enemies have. Moving on to our fourth board, we're running Ancestral Guidance as well as Fang and Claw. And I really love Ancestral Guidance for this build because Boulder unfortunately does cost quite a lot to cast, so we get to that 75 spirit really fast with this build. And then I like Fang and Claw because it gives us that multiplicative damage bonus towards enemies we're close to, and since we're always in Werebear, we'll always have that bonus up. And then it also furthermore increases our magic nodes, and you'll see here we're picking up all of our magic core skill damage nodes. Then moving into our fifth board, that is going to be the Inner Beast board, along with Territorial on the glyph slot. And Territorial is a no-brainer. We're always close to enemies, and we'll get a nice damage reduction as well with this glyph. But the Inner Beast legendary node is actually pretty good because it further decreases our spirit costs every time we swap in between Werebear and Human. And we're doing that constantly because we need to refresh Hurricane. And in order to do that, we swap into Human form. So Hurricane swaps us to Human, Boulder swaps us back to Bear, and we always keep that big buff up towards our spirit cost reduction. Then on to our last board. This is going to be the Thunderstruck board, and really we're only using this board because of the convenience of the glyph slot location, so we're just trailing down here and slotting in Spirit and grabbing up the dexterity nodes we need for the additional bonus. But that's it for the video, guys. This is a really fun build to play, and it was quite fun to put together. I'm glad I finally got it all finished for you guys, especially those Werebear lovers who are a little bit tired of running Pulverize. I think this will be a nice change of pace for you guys and something that you can still satisfy that urge to play a Werebear character with your Druid. Now, if you guys do have any questions whatsoever, go ahead and post them down in the comments section below, and I will answer your questions as soon as I see them. And if you guys see me streaming at any point in time, just swing on by and I will answer your questions if you post them in the chat. Like I said, do be on the lookout for that how-to video coming tomorrow or possibly on Tuesday. And if you've made it this far and you are interested, there is a link to my Human Lightning Storm Druid build as well as my Stormclaw build that I will be posting down in the description of this video. But as always, I hope you guys are having a great day or a great night depending on wherever you're from, and peace out, guys. I will see you in the next one.